No, what? No third person.
Oh,
Two of us.
no third person? What?
I don't remember her name is not coming to my mind. Like invitees, interviewee.
Oh, like no guests?
No guess. That's the
Yeah,
word
we,
I
we
was
don't have
looking
a
for.
guest this episode. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah, man.
Yeah,
So how are you?
we really kind of dropped the ball on this because, well, I dropped the ball first by, uh, you know, we had a bunch of design firm tours on like
Yeah,
Tuesday and Wednesday, which is when me and Kadmiel usually record. And
yeah,
I was so fixated on that I basically forgot we were going to do
yeah.
this. And so we moved it to Friday. And between now and then, neither of us thought to find a guest. So, you know,
We should. I mean, guest work, so I guess next week we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah, we'll workshop it.
We'll
Um,
workshop it.
Also,
Like
just
what?
well, basically, as soon as I got in the room, I told Cadmiel we should start recording. The reason I want to do that is just so I feel like sometimes you and I do a little bit of housekeeping or like a little bit of banter about just like how are you doing off camera, like right before we record things. I want to include that in the recordings a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I
Yeah,
don't know. I kind of like it. I like
yeah.
that raw stuff.
Yeah, man. How was the firm tour? Like,
Um, Really, really kind of exhausting, but really good. Like it did a lot of very nice things for me. Um, so
oh,
I guess the first thing is I live in Dallas, or like my parents live in Dallas, and I like to live with them because obviously it's cheap. I don't have to pay anything, you know. So if I could get an internship up here, that would be primo perfect. I love
it
that.
will.
Instead
Yeah,
of like trying to find a place outside of town where I could pay for housing, you know.
yeah.
So it was good to just like tour around and see what are some of my options out here and like can I make well this kind of leads me to the second point, which was can I make any kind of networking happen or can I make some connections to people that would maybe want to hire me. And I
Hmm.
think I did a really good job on that front, or at least it
He
felt good.
networked.
Everything about it felt right. So do you remember when we did the first round of tours in Austin? you
Yeah,
know yeah, it
yeah.
was just like that. Like I felt really good about those and I
Uh
felt
huh.
really good about these two. So all in
Yeah.
all around really great
Wow.
experience. Met a lot of people, got some business cards. It's good.
Yeah, I remember you in
Yeah,
the previous
yeah.
episode. You were like complaining, "Oh, I don't like networking. Like
Oh
it
yeah,
feels
well,
so
yeah. See,
ungenuine."
I think it depends on the circumstance cuz like I don't like there have been times in Houston where there were like workshops where they'd invite a bunch of professionals to come in. That felt really weird to me. Like when I went to that, like
Mm-hmm.
everything felt really stilted and kind of artificial, and I was very unprepared for it. But this kind of thing, where like we go to a firm and we get a tour, and I have some time to kind of like think about how I'm gonna present myself and stuff. It went great. Like I love that, and it felt really natural too. Where uh, I was able to talk to them not only about ID stuff, but I could also just talk to them about like I don't know, do you like the weather or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Like it was a much more low key environment, and it wasn't like they had come all this way just to like I don't know, talk to me about my portfolio or something. It's like we could talk to them about literally anything, and that was
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just nice. It was a nicer social environment for me, and I could be myself a lot more, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I have the best shot of actually connecting with people when I can be myself, obviously. So
Yeah.
you know.
How did it feel to see people from studio around it?
Yeah, it was interesting. So, hang on, I'm adjusting it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, I have the laptop that I'm recording on. It's sitting on a bed right now. You may have noticed the background has changed from previous
I would not
episodes.
have known.
Yeah, it's sitting on a bed right now, so there's a bunch of pillows over here, and I'm just like pushing them away from the camera
Okay,
a little
okay.
bit. But bottom line, um, your question was how
How did
what?
it feel to see people from
Oh,
studio and
right.
stuff?
So like there were a few people from our studio. Like I think Sarah Wong was there. Um, we had Michael, not Powwow, the
When?
other one. When, yeah, I knew it was N something. When Michael Moon was there, um, but not too many people from our studio. A lot of people from the studio below us, and a few
Yeah.
people from like the freshman sophomore studio. You know, like
Wow, interesting.
entering that area. Yeah. Uh huh. So oh, and a bunch of the seniors or graduated seniors were there too. Like Mehdi was there, um,
Mm-hmm.
and his whole crew of people. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was a little worried going into the whole thing because I was like, I don't want to be the like. I know a lot of the people in our studios are from Houston, so I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be like one out of five people who comes to this tour a little bit, even though I guess that would help with networking because like I'm one of the only people they could focus on.
Yeah.
It would kind of stress me out a lot, um, like being focused down like that. And also, um, I think it would be harder to avoid certain conversations with people I really don't want to talk to.
Wow, you do have those people already?
I have some people that I don't want to talk to, but
That is interesting. Wow, I have many questions now. I mean, obviously, we're talking off air. This is gonna
yeah,
be published online, so maybe we don't talk about
yeah,
it here.
yeah.
But
But I would happily tell you because I know you can keep a secret, but I'm
yeah,
not going to talk about it on the podcast because that's really mean. Um,
yeah,
and also, like, again, I don't like when I say I don't want to talk to certain people. It's no offense to those people. I just think like for one reason or another, they rub me the wrong way, or I know we're gonna get into a conversation that I really don't want to have, or
oh,
stuff
okay.
like that. It's
Wow,
like,
you of all people.
yikes. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I don't know. It
Yeah,
doesn't. It
so
doesn't shock me from the inside looking in, but maybe it shocks you from the outside looking in.
yeah. But I guess, did you talk to these people? Did you avoid them
I
successfully?
managed to avoid them. Yeah, it was great. You know, I had a lot of other things I could do, a lot of other people to talk to. Um,
Mm,
one thing that made me really happy was the one of the designers at Vari. His name is Patton. He
mm-hmm.
came, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, to UH just to give our class like a little talk about what he does and stuff. I don't know if you remember
Two
that. It was like
years.
freshman year or something. And they had
Okay.
like two designers come in and just talk about their workplace and stuff.
And like they reviewed our stuff or something?
No, I don't think they reviewed it as like a lecture thing. But
Okay.
at the end of that talk, we were allowed to just go up and like ask some questions or something, or like walk around and mingle a little bit. I went up there to Patton and I kind of introduced myself and also said like, "Hey, when do you offer internships and something?" Or like, "Do you do that often?" Well, apparently he remembered who I was, so
Wow.
or at least
That is
in a
good.
vague sense, he recognized me. So it's like that
That
kind
is
of thing
good.
where it's like it's kind of nice to know that even after like a solid year I can
Mm-hmm.
still be remembered by somebody that I had a very brief conversation with. And it kind of
Yeah.
reinforced for me the value of just, if nothing else, being able to go up to like a professional or like someone who would maybe hire you and just like have a really brief conversation, you know? And
Yeah.
like, um, I have a couple tactics too that I like to use
You of
to.
all people, he was shitting on like networking. He was like, I feel like it's gross, and now he's like, I have tactics. Did you know
No, okay,
that?
just because I don't like certain kinds of networking, that doesn't mean I can't enjoy it in some circumstances. And also,
Yes.
it doesn't mean that I don't actively think about what I'm doing. You know, I
Yeah.
do. I do think about what I'm doing. You know,
He's like, I need
and
a job.
like, yeah, to me, um, the ideal thing is if I can have something that's like half business, half regular relationship with the people I network with, where it's like I can talk to you
Yeah.
about things that aren't my portfolio, but I can also
Yeah.
talk to you about my portfolio, and we're gonna do kind of a half and half, right? Or like
Yeah.
if I give you my LinkedIn profile, I'll also talk to you about your Spotify profile, right? So
Yeah.
because again,
Uh,
I think part of it is helping them recognize that you're actually a human being with your own interests and things going on, and not like a robot that
a
only does
robot.
business. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I agree. So, like, do you have a favorite company now? Like, did you find a dream company? You're like, man,
See,
if
I
I
gotta
could
be
get down.
careful because if someone actually like, if they actually go and listen to this, God forbid, but if they do, um,
I mean, you would be talking good about them, but I haven't asked you, like,
yeah,
you hate one of
yeah,
them.
but like if they do, and you say like, "What's your favorite company?" and I don't say their company, maybe.
I mean,
But in any case, like, here's the thing: I enjoyed most of the companies I went to, but I do know that there are some that I think I would fit in a heck of a lot better than others, you know. And part of that is just like my skill set that I'm bringing to the table. Part of it is my interests. You know, part of it is like just what I want from a company. Because like, are you, you know, case in point, are you working at like a firm where they're picking up any job they get, and so it's like a huge variety of products that they're working on, like, you know, we're working on a blender one day, and then we're working on like airliner seats, and then we're working on um like sniper rifle scopes or something, you know,
yeah.
like, are you working at a company like that that's doing a whole variety of stuff, or are you working at one that only does one particular thing over and over and over again? Like, we went to a company called Fossil, and they just do watches, leathers, so like handbags and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like leather accessories and like some jewelry. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think I would fit there super well just because I don't know if I want to commit to one particular product just yet. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would make any experience is good experience, you know, like if I had the opportunity to work there, sure, like, all right. But um, there's a part of me that's a little nervous about like, I think it's easier to go from a firm that does everything to a firm that does one thing than the reverse,
Yes, I
right?
agree.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like I think it'd be good to just start out at one that is kind of multidisciplinary, you know. So things like that are the kinds of things I'm thinking about that order the companies in a certain hierarchy in my mind, you know. But like,
Yeah.
you know, like Vari, um, what they do a lot of like modular office furniture is kind of their main thing that they're
Love
doing.
that.
Yeah, I know it's actually kind of cool. I really think it's neat. But one of my problems is my portfolio has like almost no furniture in it, and the one piece of furniture I did do, even though conceptually I loved it, like, I think my chair was awesome and I want to rebuild it actually at some point. The problem is the model, like the physical model I made was rough. Like
It was.
really,
Yeah.
really rough. And the 3D model I made was, yeah, it's something. It's all right. You know, it gets a point
Yeah.
across, but it's not fancy, you know.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, it's hard for me to justify putting it in my portfolio because it doesn't have kind of the wow factor of looking really nice, even though conceptually I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And so if I applied to Vari, it's like, I don't know, like if I've got anything ready to show them exactly. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Or like,
Yeah.
I would
I
love
would
to
say,
talk like one on one with like Patton, the guy who works at Vari, about that project, because then I could actually justify, well, here's why I think it's conceptually really strong and very interesting and it excites me. Um, but like my visuals are not quite there yet, or like my physical model. I think even the physical model was a robust concept, because I made the crappiest physical model possible, and I was still able to sit in it comfortably. It supported my weight and everything. So if I
mhm.
actually made it properly, like,
Yeah.
I'm sure they would love the thing. But
Yeah. They will.
the problem is
I mean,
I don't make anything properly.
I would definitely say like don't worry about being perfect. Like I heard some
Yeah.
freshmen in IT even got internships and their
Mm.
portfolio is nowhere near like your chair is better than most of the projects right now.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
like they got internship. Like
Mhm.
so I don't think they expect you to be an all knowing person. Like they just wanna see that okay, he has the skill. Like he has touched that before.
Yeah.
Like he knows of solid work.
Something I really want to talk about too is you know how you were saying, oh, like we talked about internships earlier and you were kind of like, or not internships but networking, talked about networking earlier and you were kind of negative about it, or like you had a lot of mixed feelings about it, I think there's kind of been a mental shift for me too since
Oh,
we last talked, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of what's factoring into this as well, because you know how like I said, after sophomore year I burned out really really hard.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that like for like the past year, like going through junior year and kind of to now, I've been kind of jaded about the ID work I've been doing, and also like it's been I think it's been kind of hard for me to stay positive about a lot of things, or like
you
I'm
were
not.
not positive at all.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
attest to
I'm
that.
very. Yeah, exactly. I was like a very negative guy. Uh,
Not
so
when I first met you. You just gradually
yes,
became
yeah.
sadder.
I gradually like declined really hard, but that's why I. That's like a main reason why I took a gap year, because I know that I came to a point where I was like, I don't want to look at the work I've done so far. Like I don't even want to touch it. I'm not gonna open like SolidWorks. I'm not opening Keyshaw. I'm not touching Adobe Creative Suite for a while because I'm done. Or I need a minute. You know,
Yeah,
because I recognize that every time I touched it, it would cause like a visceral emotional response in me, where I was like,
mm,
I don't want to do this right now, or like I can't handle this right now. And I was like, if I keep pushing that, or like if I don't take time to step away from all this ID stuff and allow it to become something I can enjoy again, I'm going to be in trouble.
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And so that's honestly the main reason I took the gap year more than anything else. Like what I say to a lot of people is that I'm doing it to refine my portfolio more. And while that is true, the main reason is just so I have some time to step away from this environment and everything that's been going on so I can enjoy ID again.
yeah,
And I think like especially with this most recent like firm tour that we did, I'm getting back to that place where like when I open SolidWorks and start working on like some of my old projects, I'm actually like in joy, and I'm having a happy response again,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah.
instead of like trepidation or like uh horror or like exhaustion, you know. Um
Yeah.
like I'm becoming my old self again, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
approaching ID my way, which is making me much happier.
Yes.
I think part of my
God.
problem was just the environment of UH as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it'll be really good for me to be around some new people, to not have some of the um, superiors in my life that made things a little hard for me. um,
Yeah.
n- Not putting any names out, but um, I think that just getting away from Houston for a while, getting away from some of the people that drove me absolutely up the wall, getting some new people in the door for me to talk to, and being able to have a little more autonomy with how I approach some of my ID stuff is doing a lot for my mental state. And yeah, I think basically I've kind of hit a turning point now where I've had a couple months to just step away from everything, and I can start
Yeah.
to be happy again about this career path, you know? So,
Yeah. Oh
I
man.
don't know. I mean,
I,
I don't think I ever thought that I would do something other than ID since I started this major. Like, ID was the plan. And
yeah.
I knew that anything else, if I did anything else, I wouldn't enjoy it as much. I don't
Yeah.
think. You know, like I couldn't do engineering. I probably wouldn't enjoy coding very much. There's all kinds of stuff that I wouldn't enjoy, you know. So ID is it. It's just even for something that you care about that much, you can still get burned out on it to the point where you don't even want to look at it. You know, if the environment is wrong and the people are wrong and the work is beating you into the ground, you know.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
I relate to that. Like going back to other project, I am looking at my junior here. I am kind of ashamed of a lot of projects I
Hmm.
did this semester. Not because they were bad, but because the vision was not accomplished because I did not have enough time.
Yes, yes, I
And
feel that
obviously,
so
some
much.
I know some teachers are going to be like, but this is how it works. This is how ID is gonna be. You're never going to have enough time. You have to like make the project. And I'm like, it's gonna sound mean, but I'm also like, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
me give me one more day, and this is what it becomes.
Yes.
And like I retouched my chair, and this is like this project, like because I retouched it, I'm like I can shove it someone's face. Like I'm so proud of it. Like
Yeah.
I can come with only that chair and show it to people and be like, I'm going to be so excited about it that they're going to be excited about it.
Yeah.
And that's totally different. Like to come with a project, I'm like, oh, I did it like in this amount of time, but I don't really like it.
Hmm.
Like people see that, people notice that, and like in ID, I have never like no matter the subject, no matter the constraint they gave to us, I've never done a project that I didn't want to do, except the COVID project. This
Yeah.
project was like I did not want to do that project at all. And whatever I made, I hope this memory dies in my mind. I hope like I don't know. I get knocked on the head and just forget about that.
See, that's
But
really funny because the COVID project is one of the very first projects in my portfolio.
yeah,
So,
mine was
you know,
terrible. Mine
Adam Wells thought it was great. He was like, "This is perfect," and I'm like, "Okay." That
yeah, yeah.
kind of caught me
Oh,
off guard, but apparently it's one of my stronger projects, according to him.
oh yeah. Definitely
Yeah.
some people did good on that. I did not. And
Mm.
like again, for many of my project when I go back to them and actually retouch them, I feel like I'm enjoying ID. I'm like, there is something in the I don't know if it's the pressure because
Yeah.
I'm
Yes, it's
no like
something about the co-ed, right?
yes, like I'm
That like
pressure
that
proof.
kills you, or like
I feel like
kills
I'm
your
pressure proof.
inspiration and your drive. And like you become
Yeah,
such a jaded person, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you become unhappy,
Yeah. Uh-huh. Or
and
like
that's
it,
the
it
key.
messes
Like
with your head.
it's not even the pressure because I like pressure. I like competitiveness. These are things when you put on me, I answer positively to that.
Yeah.
But unhappiness and just almost like depression, like that's not inspiring. And like I would have ideas and they'll be taken the wrong way, which again they try to simulate how the customer would react to your idea.
Oh yeah.
But like it was not conducive at all for me to be happy in the program. And maybe that's not the goal. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like I look at the person I was when I entered the program and I look at who I am today, I evolved a lot. I might have
Yes.
been I grew
Yeah.
sadder, but I also grew stronger.
I think there are maybe three things that kind of contribute to um, driving me into that place. And like the first is like you have to do so many projects so fast, right? Like I
Hmm.
think the time frames you actually have to accomplish anything are really slim. And even though the projects are made simpler because your time frames are really short, it's still kind of ambitious. Like everything feels ambitious. Second thing is you're learning a ton of skills that you have no prior experience with. Like at least the average person who applies for ID, they don't have any experience with like SolidWorks or Creative Cloud when they walk in the door of the college,
Yes,
you know?
you are
So,
learning as you're making.
yeah, you're like learning on the job basically how to
Yes.
like do the things you need to do and like um, definitely for like the first 2 years, it was an uphill battle of just one thing after another. You're learning a brand new skill that you've never touched before, and it's unlike anything you've ever done. You have no
Yeah.
context for it. Whereas, like, now that I'm in now that I've gone through junior year, and I think looking at senior year and what they'll expect of me, I don't think I'm going to have to do that as violently anymore, where it's like things are going to slow down a little bit and I'm going to be leveraging a lot of skills that I've kind of got some background with and it won't be as terrifying, you know. Third thing
Yeah.
is you're working by yourself on like every single project. I think
You
out of
are
all
working by yourself.
out of all the years we've done this, we only had one group project and it was a group of 3, you know.
And it was
So
only
like
the research part.
yeah. Well, no, we had the research one, but we also had the faucet project. Right? So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we had 2 projects where we had some group work,
Yeah.
but one of them was only the research phase. The other one was the entire project, but even then it was only 3 people per team. So yeah, like it's I think one thing that's just so brutal. It's like you got to do everything by yourself in this time frame, and it's all entirely new to you. And after
Yeah.
you do that for like 2 years, I
You
think you
usually
come out
burn out.
pretty rough. Yeah. Like I
You
think most
usually
people
burn
burn
out.
out. And then you've got your professors which are you know, as much as they help, like their job is to push you. And so they do a lot of pushing. And sometimes after you've been like stressed to your limit for like 2 years, you start to react to that badly a little bit.
Yeah.
Or
Oh yeah.
like even though like on the surface you're like okay I'll try that, inside you're like like mother effer I'm gonna have to redo this entire like half of the project now
Yeah.
because the professor doesn't like what I was doing this whole time, or like
Oh
why didn't you tell
god.
me sooner, you get so dark, like it's hard to maintain a healthy headspace when you've got so much pressure on you from
Yeah,
just the nature of the work you're doing. And I think that companies don't work like that because
they don't.
it's not a productive way to work, you know?
Yeah,
And it doesn't produce successful products, and that's why companies are not working like that. You
yeah,
know, at least from my experience looking at like all these firms and how they do things, it always seems so much more relaxed than
yeah. You
what
come on
I've
a
been
day
doing,
work there and
you
take
know?
that and compare it to the quad.
Yeah.
The atmosphere in the quad is insane.
Like I think I said to
Like,
Schumann something along the lines of anything is better than the co-ed. You know?
yes, no, like I feel this is a social experiment. Like the atmosphere, there is an insanity in the quad,
Yeah,
literally, that
yeah,
is going on, and that makes you like that. Like you just come and you just participate in it.
yeah,
You cannot do otherwise. You j-
yeah,
and I don't know if we foster that in the, if it's a teacher, where is this coming from,
yeah.
or are we all like feeding into that? That there is an insanity. Like I just have to. I spend so much time with a freshman and seeing them transform and like going into sophomore, and I'm like, I just see the same symptom. I just see myself
Yes.
like going
Yeah.
through that, and I'm like, I know very where we're gonna end up,
Yeah.
and I keep telling them like, don't burn out. Don't burn out before sophomore review. Don't burn out before that. Like, see it on the long term, and I just see them literally. It just keeps going like that.
Yeah. The number one thing I want to say to people who are going through the co-ed now, after I've gone through 3 years, is it does get better, and like it will be okay. Like
Yeah.
definitely for me at least, the first 2 years are the hardest because of that whole learning new skills thing. But once you get the basics down of most of the skill sets you're going to be using, it will get easier, you know? And like even if you run into something that's a totally new skill for you, you can kind of uh even if you're not good enough at that yet to produce what people want you to, you can usually make up for that with the things you already know, right?
Mhm.
Like you still have like okay, let's say we're trying to make a model, right? And let's say I'm trying to like I want to weld it or something. I want to make something out of steel. Even if I can't manage that, like maybe it's my first time welding and it's just going horribly wrong. Well, I've been in the co-ed long enough to know a lot about woodworking. So I could come up with a last minute wooden uh, product instead of a metal one. And that would be acceptable. It's just not the ideal, but it works, and
Mhm.
people can roll with that. And that's what I'm talking about, where it's like when you first come into the co-ed, you have no skills to help you approach those problems. So, like, the first 2 years, it's like you're constantly on the precipice of failure and you have no plan B, right?
Yeah.
But once you're in junior and senior year, you have the skill sets to have plan Bs and plan Cs, when things go wrong. And you're much more efficient at executing those plans, and it just gets I think it gets easier because you become a more capable person, but
Yeah. Man.
that's what I would say is like I think like one of the things that the seniors used to say to us when we first came into co-ed was it doesn't get easier. And that's true. It doesn't get easier, but what does happen is you get better. And so in a way that it does kind of get easier. It's just not the work that's changing, it's you who's changing, right?
Yeah. I think one of them told me it doesn't get easier. You just get used to it.
See, that's a really dark way of saying it. I wouldn't say it like
No,
that,
but that's kind
right?
of true, right? Like you get
Yeah.
used to it. Like this semester, like after sophomore year, I burnt out. The first semester of junior year, I was recovering for burning out. I could not give my best to anything because I was just recovering.
Yeah.
Um, Midway through, after Austin, like midway through this semester, that's when I actually got back from the dead. and
Yeah. Yeah.
and where like I could like sit down and be like, okay, this is what I need to do, and I can accurately plan how I'm gonna do it. And even
Yes.
if I pull a all nighter, I know when it's gonna happen. And it comes from all this past experience. Like you just get used to it. And like
Yeah.
it wasn't even on my birthday, like I was preparing for for the Tramontina project, which was literally the next morning, and I was pulling a all nighter. And I knew
Mhm.
it would happen. I knew what I will be doing at that specific time. And
Yeah.
it felt easy. Like, not that it's easy to pull a all nighter, but the mental shock of my first all nighter when I was like, what I have never like worked on something all night. Like that shock had disappeared. I was like, yeah, I'm doing it.
Mm.
And it wasn't a shock. And it I knew how to recover from that. I
Yeah.
knew how to sleep and stuff like that.
Yeah, so maybe it is that you kind of do get used to it mentally, where crisis is not a shock to you anymore. Or like
Yeah.
the bar you set for what is a crisis gets raised. So
Yeah.
that now that when you run into something that to someone who hasn't been an ID thinks, wow, this is really hard, you're like, yeah, another day,
Yeah,
right?
another day.
So you do, I guess it's true that you do get used to it, but you also just get better. Like, I think
I
that I would phrase it like you become a more capable and better person, in the
yeah.
COD. Like you learn a ton of cool skills and stuff, but you do also mentally go through this like hardening process of like how you perceive crisis and how you adapt to catastrophic scenarios and how you accept failure. And I think
Yeah.
that's what that guy meant by getting used to it, is maybe the
Yeah.
mental journey, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, but again, like you, I love ID.
Yeah.
That's the only degree I can do.
Yes, same. I
Like
couldn't
it's
imagine doing anything different right now, except maybe
yeah.
like going into some kind of blue collar job. I think I might do that well, actually. But
The
like,
factory or
I have a
something.
friend who works at a demolition company, and sometimes I look at that and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I wouldn't mind
It's
that.
so hot
Like,
outside
I
though.
want to drive a Caterpillar tractor all day. And
Yeah,
I work great with heat. I don't mind if it's
yeah,
really hot. A lot of those
uh,
Caterpillar tractors have air conditioned cabs nowadays. Stuff like that.
yeah,
But I'm sure like when you're actually in it, it's a lot less glamorous. But isn't everything? Like ID is not that glamorous either.
it's
Everything
not.
everything has its pros and cons. But in any case, I think I could enjoy that. I like heavy machinery.
Yeah.
I'm
My
a simple
favorite part
man.
of my favorite part of ID is crafting the vision, really. Like the
Yeah.
story of it, how it's gonna be perceived by people.
Yes,
We,
the storytelling is something I didn't expect to be there, but I have a lot of fun with it.
yeah. And no, like that's one of my favorite part. And again, like when I came into the program, that was something I guess I was better at it, but I had no model to back it up. So I
Yeah,
had to actually be able to train myself because model making was my weakness. Now it's not.
yeah,
Now I make good models. Like after the chair project, I'm like, I know metal, I
yeah,
know foam, I know so many how to make a model. It's not a weakness anymore.
yeah.
That felt great. But yeah, like this thinking about like how it's gonna be presented, how the public is gonna react to it. That's I spent so much time on it. And I look at my project. I've rarely been able to produce 20 concepts. And
Oh,
my teachers, oh yeah. But every single concept I've presented, if they were 11 or 15 or
mm-hmm.
even 9, they were unique. they
Yeah.
were not variation of like the same thing. I've
Yes.
never done that. I spend a lot of time thinking
Yeah.
about each of these concepts and literally see them as like a finished product, which
Dude,
is
like
yeah.
same thing, man. Like whenever we've been asked to generate ideas and like slam out 20 ideas, sketch them out so you can explain them to me. I could never sit and generate like I like to say like okay, you design an idea that's kind of a gimmick where it's like this is a product and this is its special trait that makes it different from everything else on the market, right? Um, I try to assign like at least one kind of gimmicky thing to each idea I generate, where it's like, here's a different or wild way of doing things that is not on the market right now. And even if it is kind of a gimmick where it's like, okay, in practice, this is not a revolutionary thing, or like you sell it like it's a revolutionary idea, but really it's just kind of an obnoxious hindrance to the product's function, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Usually, if you take a couple of like bad ideas or like bad gimmicks and you cobble them together, you can actually, and like again, like discard some parts of it, bring in other parts. You can come up with something that is actually useful and innovative and interesting, you know? And that's usually how my design processes go. Like, usually it's not that I take one concept and develop that into something crazy. It's usually I take like five of my busted ideas and bring
Hmm.
them all together into one good idea, you know? I think that's the true joy for me in ideation is generating so many bad ideas that they all join together and become a good idea. You know,
Yeah.
or like taking a bad idea and asking how can we make this work, you know, and if you
Yeah.
eventually work hard enough you can probably find a way to make it work, you know, and then
Yeah.
it's super special because no one has bothered, number one, to even entertain a bad idea, but number two, no one has bothered to fight to bring the bad idea to a place where it works, you know, and
Yes.
it makes sense and is different and cool, you know. So,
I I will soon start reading a book about storytelling,
oh
but
yeah,
like one thing that when I say I spend a lot on storytelling, it's not only in ID because like again like being in another place that's not your place. I've often sat down and tried to be like translate my story like in Ivory Coast in a way that's interesting. And
yeah,
one thing I do, like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and obviously I want to podcast, so I do pay attention to how these people talk. And the reason I love like podcast about comedy is that a good comedian, is extremely good at telling stories and like creating a reaction in you.
yeah,
And like not only with word, but like silence or like letting you think for a moment or saying
yes,
something and
yes,
waiting 3 seconds and in 3 seconds you get something and you start laughing
yeah, like the
just because
comedic
you waited.
timing, right?
Yeah.
Or like
Yes.
allowing the audience to like piece things together and come up like figure out the butt of the joke themselves, you know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like I was listening to Dave Chappelle recently, and it wasn't one of his funniest appearance. He was just doing a speech in a college. So
yeah,
obviously there were some jokes, but he wasn't like here to make a lot of jokes. But you could see why they call him sometimes the greatest comedian because he could retain your attention. Like it was insane how much he retained your attention for
yeah,
40 minutes and like without it, like it's a power he has and he has developed through like making jokes and he will just
yeah,
tell you stories that will spend like 10 minutes long and there are stages to it, there are like pauses it would take, like you are following him for these 10 minutes of him talking
yes.
until like the end, like the final, and like at the end, like the joke comes at the end, and you just laugh about it,
Yeah.
and you just like, wow, like that seemed kind of semi improvising. Like, can you just imagine being able to talk about like your project like that? That would be, to me, that's a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, like being able to turn your project presentation into a show, right? That like
Yeah.
something that people would want to attend because they know it's going to be entertaining, you know?
Yes.
And like your sales pitch becomes less of a sales pitch and more of again like a performance, you know?
Yes.
That's fun, right?
It
Like
is fun.
if you want to have fun during your sales pitch and you want your audience to have fun during your sales pitch, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you like? I was also thinking about like. So my parents have been aware that I'm the student council chair,
Yeah.
and,
Let's go,
and
Kadmiel.
yeah, like they have said how proud they are. Like, this is great. Like when we sent you in the US, we could not imagine that you would be leader of like something in your college, like in your community.
Yeah.
And it's I've been thinking about like my cohort years, and if you were to give me a microphone and tell me like how, like tell me how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I've we have been through so much things. At least like I know you have been, and me also. I've been through so many things in
Yeah,
this
I know
program.
you've been through a lot.
Yeah, that I'm
Yeah.
almost reacting like, how to say that? I started reacting late to things. Like I'm literally still like processing events that
Yeah.
have happened months before. And I'm not even to the point where I even realize like I'm in the moment, I'm doing it, like I'm preparing, I'm doing the meeting, but it almost as if like it hasn't hit me yet that it
Yeah.
is an achievement or something.
You know, you know how I said I took a break for like 2 months where I just totally detached from like the ID scene and
Yes.
was able to it's not that I like totally detached, it was more that like I needed to stop doing things so I could think about what I've done and
Yes.
actually come to conclusions about what I've done and where that's put me mentally and how I should move forward to be better. Because another thing I noticed is that I'm just not operating at my peak efficiency. Or at least I wasn't. I think now I can, but up
Yeah.
until like a few days ago, I don't think I could operate at peak efficiency on anything, you know? And again, part of that is just taking a moment, stepping back, looking at what I've done. I think that you are probably going to need the same thing sometime.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think right now I'm watching Cadmiel at his peak efficiency or like peak mental health, you know? But
Yeah,
that's the thing
definitely
is
not.
like I am so impressed with you as a person. I have huge respect for you as a person and how far
Thank
you've
you.
actually made it largely on your own and how far you're still going at not peak efficiency, right? Like
Definitely not.
I feel extremely fortunate just as a person to know you, and
Wow.
to
Same,
be
man.
able to have a podcast with you and be in your inner circle a little bit, means a lot to me. So,
Means a lot to me to know you, man. Uh,
yeah.
it's again being like I've always said, like if taking a gap year did not imply me going back to Ivory Coast where my family isn't there, that I would have taken a gap year. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't kidding about it. Like
Yeah.
I needed to run away for a
Yeah.
long time. And I decided to take that break in the semester and almost fail everything because I could not I did not have any energy.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, so far, I'm like, it's been pretty sad. And I say that because I'm still in the semester where I'm recovering. Like
Yes.
mentally, I
Yes.
am still processing that. I'm not even to Tramontina yet. I'm not even to Austin yet. I'm not
Yeah.
even to
Yeah.
getting the student council position. I'm still in last semester trying to unpack this
Yeah.
and getting and literally putting a ribbon on it, like being like, okay, I have dealt with this. I can put it in the closet and forget about it. So
Yeah.
I'm still like influenced sometimes by this sadness I felt at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, one day I'm gonna come out of it, but again, it's gonna come like maybe like in what
Ugh.
6 months from now, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, I was elected to this position. This is insane,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna
Yeah.
be super happy about it. But that's how I've been evolving.
Hmm. Yeah. Like,
It's,
honestly, last night I was able to touch my LinkedIn profile for like the first time in months. Like, actually stop and look at it and work on it. And I spent some time like you know, like I redid my profile pic. I got a new profile pic on there now, which is way better than the one I had before, and it's also more recent. And
mhm.
you know, I added a bunch of my skills and I uploaded my resume and stuff that I did during my portfolio class like several months ago. You know, but it's like it's that kind of stuff that I wasn't I just could not bring myself to touch or do. You know, it's like
Yeah,
if you asked me 3 months ago, hey, can you go on your LinkedIn and like update things and I don't know, maybe go and may open your InDesign document for your resume and like update that and add some new things to it, I would be having like a mental breakdown.
yes,
You
I'll
know?
punch you or something.
Yeah, yeah. But what's so crazy, like what is really crazy is after 2 months of just being able to step away, I was able to do that last night and I enjoyed it. Like I had fun
Wow.
doing it. And I was like, I was excited, you know? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like, you know, to be operating in a healthy space, you know, or like normally, you know, I'm finally getting back to like regular me, you know, that's way healthier
Yeah,
and way more positive and you know,
regular
like
me.
yeah, regular Cadmiel. Like I can't wait
I
for
don't.
regular Cadmiel, right?
I don't think regular Kadmiel is gonna look like the one that came before ID,
Yeah.
but it's also not gonna look like the one you see right now.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Definitely going to be one that's more competent and happier.
yeah.
Like,
And honestly, I think more productive too, you know. At least that's how
yeah,
it's working for me because it's like now I can actually work on things because I want to work on them, not because I have to, you know. Big
yeah.
difference. Really big
If,
difference.
if there is one thing I can say about my life, is that my life was not boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I
This
would
is
say
like
so.
like yesterday I had a discussion with a friend
Mhm.
telling like stories about and like it's almost as if like is everything happening to you like how is your life that like I I can stay in a week like and do nothing and nothing will happen and Daniel you come up with crazy stories all the time and I'm like my life was not is not boring at all. And every
Yeah.
time I thought I could predict it, I could not. Like
Yeah.
I could not have imagined where I'm at right now. And I'm going into my senior year and I'm like, how does it look at the end when they hand me that degree? Like what would have been accomplished?
Yeah.
And I cannot predict it. But I know it's not gonna be boring.
Yeah.
I know things are gonna come up. I'm gonna have to overcome things again. But so many I almost hope that there will be a point in my life, hopefully just after ID studying it, where I see myself on a beach in a country, maybe Spain because it has beautiful beaches,
Yeah.
and like lonely beaches, like just being somewhere and letting the sea like hit my feet
Yeah.
and just process.
Yes. Like finally the world has stopped.
Yes,
You're off the merry-go-round and you can stop and turn around and look at the whole thing, frame it, and be
yes,
like, okay, that's what it was. And that's what happened. You can start to
yeah,
like I think like everything right now feels like a blur to me. It's all going so fast, and like one thing blends into the next, and it's one thing after another, and like I get done with one crisis, and a new one shows up. Oh my god! You know,
yeah,
it's nice to finally like reach a place where it's like you can stop. You don't have to do anything. No one is
yeah,
leaning over your shoulder saying, "Hey, are you gonna do that thing? Because if you don't, you'll die." You know,
yeah.
like
No, you're
there's no voice in the back of my head that's like pointing a gun to the back of my head and saying, "Do this or else." It's
yeah,
just like you can sit and think.
yeah. No,
And
I
it
remember
does a lot for you.
you are saying it right because I was thinking like there was a semester where I was supposed to do like paperwork to go see my family.
Yeah,
And I was coming off, I don't know, sophomore year or something, but I was burnt out.
yeah,
And I had to tell them that I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna come see you because doing this paperwork feels like a mission. And I've been a man on a mission for 4 years, for so long. Like
yeah,
even when I was supposed to rest, there was a mission.
yes,
Where I would just go from mission to mission to mission to
yes.
mission.
Oh my gosh, I know that, man. I know that feeling so well.
And I am so eager for a day where I can sit and be like, there are no mission.
Yeah,
And I know as a person, again, I want to accomplish all these things. So there might not be a time where like I don't have a mission, but I want it to be like every mission I've had, I did not have control over, in a
yeah,
sense. Like you come into the semester, there are missions to accomplish. Finish the semester, there are other things to deal with, and no break. And I
yeah,
just hope one day I can just sit on that beach and be like, I can just sit here and nothing is going to happen. No one's gonna call me and be like, we were expecting that from you and you haven't done it yet and you
yeah.
need to do it now.
Or like that's another thing is the worst thing is when you can't escape your own mind. Where like even if no one is calling you and holding you accountable for that thing, you're holding you accountable for that thing. Like you're trying to relax. You know this is your designated time where you're supposed to not think about work. But no matter how hard you try, there's a voice in the back of your head saying, "Hey, you're on thin ice at work. And if you don't do something about that soon, you're going to drown." you know
Yes.
and you're sitting there on the beach trying to enjoy the beach. I just want to sit on my beach towel and soak in the sun and not think about anything for 5 minutes, but the only thing that comes to your mind is like, that project you were working on that you didn't quite get done, and like your boss is really worried about it, and if you don't do it, then the company's going to lose a lot of money, and like that those kinds of thoughts are like floating
Oh
around
man,
back there. It's horrible. Like
it is.
even your free time, you can't get the free time, right? I think my
Yeah.
worst experiences were all-nighters, because what would happen is like, so I was extremely burned out, like really badly burned out by the end of sophomore year and in through junior year, like some of the early days of junior year. um I would pull an all nighter, and it wasn't even a necessary all nighter. Like it would be maybe like, hey, I need you to draw like 9 sketches,
Yeah.
nine pages of sketches for 3 different concepts. Go. And it's like, okay, ordinary healthy Nick could probably do all of that in like 1 hour. Easy. No problem.
Yes.
Well,
Oh yes.
I would be sitting there at like 8 p.m. and I'd be like, no, I can't do it. I just can't. I cannot bring myself to sit down. I would go, I would sit down in the desk and I'd be like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And I'd open the software and everything and I'd have my pen in my hand. I'd be looking at the blank sheet of paper and I just could not put the pen down to the paper. Like I couldn't do it. It was like agonizing. And
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, maybe I just need to like cool off for a minute, go take a shower or something, right? So I go to the shower, but when I'm in the shower, the only thing I'm thinking of is you're not doing that thing you're supposed to be doing. If you don't do that, you're gonna die, you know.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a relaxation. It wouldn't turn me off. And I would
That's
come back
what's not
I'd come
working.
back to the sheet of paper and I would still freeze and I wouldn't go to bed and sleep and like reset my mental headspace because if I went to bed, it would feel to me like giving up. Where it's like you go to sleep, you're committing to sleep for like 6 to 9 hours, ideally, you know. And if you do that, you're not going to have enough time to do the sketches you got to do, and you'll have to come into like work tomorrow, school, and not have the assignment that you were supposed to do fully done. And that is unacceptable. So you are staying up until you do it. But I was in an impossible situation where it's like I can't go to sleep until I do it, but I can't bring myself to do it. So all I'm doing is staying up in this
And looking.
in this cycle of chaos and like turmoil and anxiety, and like I'm ripping myself apart mentally for hours until I finally am able to hammer this thing out over the course of several hours and go to bed at like 6 in the morning. And it's like that is such an inefficient, wrong way to work, because
It
again,
is.
the assignment, I could, if I was healthy, I could have had it done in 1 hour, gone to bed at like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
But I turned it into, because I'm like my mental headspace was just wrong. It turned into an all-nighter and a really self-destructive, self-defeating cycle, And like, yeah,
Yeah.
I got it done, but at what cost, right?
Hmm.
It's bad.
No, that's the thing. Like, I know for a fact you and me, we are heck of sketchers. Like,
Yeah.
we're extremely good sketchers. Like, it would not take us long to come with 20 concepts.
Yeah.
It's sketching is easy.
Yeah.
It is, I don't know, it's the mental hurdle of,
Yeah.
I don't know what this obstacle that you just described.
Yeah.
It's what makes it longer.
Yeah. I think maybe it's something to do with just like you associate bad feelings with the project. And so if you're in a space that's neutral, like even if you don't feel good, you just feel neutral, the idea of approaching the project, like automatically that reminds you of all these bad feelings that you associate with the project. And
Yeah.
you start to panic, or your mind starts to like panic, or like even if it's not specifically the project, if you're using the same software that you used on the project that was really brutal and really bad, it messes with your head. Like your brain is making these emotional associations with bad experiences you've had. And even
Yes.
if the project itself isn't that bad, it's tied to something bad, and that's why you can't bring yourself to do it. You know?
I will definitely cite two projects that I had to redo, and the second time I was able to do them at the fullest because I did not have like that stress we just described, like the chair project, the cardboard chair project.
Yeah.
I put so much effort into making that chair that ultimately crumbled. and that was the
Yeah.
only chair that fell. I presented my chair, and that was the only one that failed to like sustain the workload. And I went to a dark place that day, but I was already in a dark place in that project.
Yeah.
And like nothing was working. It took me so long, and I produced a crappy chair. Like
Yeah.
it was crap. Down the line at the end of the semester, the professor comes to me and is like, hey, you know you can redo that chair. Like if you are not proud of it, like you can redo it for a better grade. 24 hours later, I had finished it.
Seriously?
Yes, it took me
Oh my
24 hours.
gosh.
It took me 24 hours. The afternoon he told me,
Yeah.
to afternoon of the next day, I was laser cutting that chair. And I sat on it and it supported the weight.
You gotta be
Everything
kidding
worked.
me.
Yes. And I was like, how is that? Like, this is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
something is different. Something is different. Then we
Yeah.
go to the real chair project, my chair Jape. I took
Yeah.
an awful long time to. I mean, I'm proud of the first version, but the
Mhm.
remastered version is so beautiful and so much better.
Yeah.
And again, like it was like I made the chair. It was excruciating to make that chair for the first time.
Yeah.
Had they given me like one more day, it would have been completely finished. But we had to present it, and when we presented it, I didn't want to touch it anymore.
Yeah.
And then it came like to the next year, next semester, they were like, hey, we are going to do like the exhibition, and we need you to pick a project. I was not proud of any of my project, but I decided to retouch one project, and it was
Mhm.
that shirt. It took me less than a day to do the remastered version.
Yeah. Yeah.
Less than 24 hours. I had pulled out like renders that were so great. Like I literally went to the SolidWorks version and changed the chair significantly.
Yeah.
Like I spent and like it went fast. Like I was in SolidWorks and I was focused. I was like know what I'm doing. I sketched what I was doing, SolidWorks. Like everything was coming. Like I was doing everything all at once. Like
Yeah.
and like I'm doing everything. Like I go into Keyshot, I render it, and I pull the nicest renders I ever made. And I posted that shit. Like I had posted the first version of Jeep. People were like, "Huh." I posted the second version, and people were texting me like, "What is this? This is beautiful."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, it took me less than a day. Like it took me less than a day, and I didn't even go into SolidWorks to like do some minor modification. I changed the frame of the chair,
Yeah.
and I'm like something felt different. Like something felt different, and because that thing that was preventing me from doing that project correctly wasn't there,
Yeah.
it just went fast.
Yeah. You
And
know, this
yeah,
is this is kind of off topic a little bit. It's similar to what you were talking about, but um, you know that tank I modeled?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
you,
I had this like I do a lot of art projects on the side just for me. And one of the things I did do was I like when I was in high school, I drew up this little concept for a light tank that I thought was just adorable. It has all everything about it was perfect in my eyes, and I always wanted to make it like 3 dimensional or like a little more real somehow. Well, I finally got to the point where I had SolidWorks under my belt and everything. So junior year, um, I think it was like near the tail end of the semester, I had like a day where I had some free time. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go and just start modeling that tank, because
yeah.
I don't know, it makes me happy. Um, I hammered that thing out in like 7 hours. Just like wham, the whole thing, like all the individual track links, the sprocket design, which is like a gear tooth thing that interlinks with the tracks.
Yeah.
I modeled side skirts for the tank that are like slightly beat up and a little angled wrong, and I modeled a headlight, and I modeled a turret with a rotating gun. It's all separate parts. I made it so I could 3D print it. I put it in Keyshot, did a bunch of renders in Keyshot. Then I made a full presentation of like 8 slides where I drew a cartoon version of myself talking and being in the tank and stuff to like present it to people. I did
Yeah.
all of that in like 7 hours. Just wham, slammed it out. And it's like, oh my God, why can't I do this with like
Uh,
other
but,
projects? It's like, this is what it looks like when I actually am like, when I feel neutral about what I'm working on, or when I feel even slightly good about what I'm working on, or like I'm in a better mental headspace, I can be crazy productive, Or it's
yeah.
like, I had no idea I was this competent with SolidWorks, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my
Dude.
God.
And I remember texting you being like, "Are you crazy? Like, did you just spend went in SolidWorks to do something you like something not
Yeah.
related to school?"
Yeah. I encourage you to do that though. Like now that you know SolidWorks, Cadmiel, but also anyone who's listening that knows how to do something from their ID
Oh
degree,
my god.
use it for something you like. And actually, I think if you use those tools for something you like, you'll be able to associate a good experience with the tool, which is going to help you when you use that tool for something that you're not excited about, right?
And
Like
let's be
I
true.
think it's all about tricking your brain into associating good emotions with
And here's what we're
whatever
not telling
tools
you.
you're using.
If you do what you like and you do it well, you can get a job out of it. People
Yeah,
are gonna notice that.
yeah. Like low key, I'm thinking about putting that tank in my at the very end of my portfolio as a like
Yeah,
what do I do just outside of work, because that was totally an unprompted thing that I just wanted to do.
yeah,
And I think it actually shows off my 3D modeling skills really well. Like, of all the things I've ever 3D modeled, that might be one of the better things I've done.
yeah. Something I wanna do if I have time and when I have time that I've never done is again like you and me have thought about like our personal project and stories.
Yes,
And
yes.
any place that I've in my fictional story that I wrote, I know exactly what furniture are in this place. Like I know
Oh, you
exactly.
want to make the furniture, right?
I like the place. Like I'm
Yeah.
so about like I love designing experiences.
Mm-hmm.
That's why like going into Keyshot, like I love SolidWorks and going into Keyshot is one of my favorite part because playing with lighting and like just and like I love watching video games being played
Yeah.
just so that instead of focusing on the game itself, I'm looking at the environment.
Ooh.
Like I'm looking at that game, it's a cat. You play a cat
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world.
I was watching a Let's Play of that too.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm literally watching the Let's Play
Yeah.
right now.
Let me figure
And
out what
they're
it's
in this
called so the
they
viewers
live in this robot world and like
Yeah.
the robot the aesthetic of the city is like it's a whole experience.
Dude,
And I'm
I
like
was doing the same thing. Like watching, I was like, wow, this environment is so fascinating. And like, look at all the design in here. Like for the
and you're
city,
playing
it's
a
totally
cat.
custom, right?
They make you like you're a cat and like they had
Yeah.
these study cats.
For the record, the game is called Stray, Stray.
Stray. Yes.
But
And I'm enjoying it because
yeah,
it taps into a reason why I do ID, which
yes.
is like how how do you perceive like the experience of a project, of the experience of a product. I love it. I love it. I really do.
Yeah, me too, man. Like I was watching that Let's Play, and like they were the Let's Play starts in like this really exotic, like it's almost like a massive drainage ditch or something, and you've got these huge concrete walls on either side of you that are all overgrown with like vegetation and plant life, and then you have these massive drainage pipes coming out of the walls at different angles, and you sit there and it already the world building is going crazy because you're like, what is this massive concrete structure that we are inside? And like,
Yeah.
what is outside of this structure? And like, there are all these pipes coming out of the walls. Where do they go to? You know, like, and what's coming out of the pipes, right? Like, there was this one enormous pipe that was like the size of like a 5-story building or something, and it's like, at what point would they need to drain that much fluid that fast through a pipe that massive? Like, there's got to
Mm-hmm.
be some kind of reservoir or something that like feeds into this pipe. But stuff like that, like, that is a user experience. Like, it's not a product, it's an environment, but that's the kind of thing you want to elicit through products. Like, you want people to look at it and get intrigued and excited and curious, and be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, what does this do?" Or like, you when you design a product, you design it with all these little hints as to what its functions are and what it can do. Like, a button, you don't make the button flush with the surface. You make the button like protrude a little bit or divot
Oh,
a
I
little
love making buttons.
bit, right? So
I love
people
it.
can be like, oh, like they're looking at the finish of this object. Maybe they don't even know what it is. Like, let's say you take a caveman and give him a cell phone, right? He'll look at it and be like, huh, like, this is some kind of weird monolith thing, but there's an indent here that's like the exact size of my finger, and I naturally just want to push it. And like, you assume
Yeah.
something's gonna happen if you like poke that
Oof.
thing, right? But
I Yeah, oh my God. Smartphones today, their design looks like you have to ask because like now it's a full screen. And
yeah,
that has always been the dream. But when it came for the first time, they had to put like the home button and they had to shape the icons like buttons to again give you that cue of
yeah,
being like maybe I should touch because otherwise you will not
yeah,
touch it.
yeah. You know
And now
what?
that everybody knows that, they don't need to do that anymore.
You know what kind of upsets me though? I actually kind of hate touch screens. And the reason why is because I think that people are missing out on a distinct and visceral user experience, right? Like, if you gave me the choice between, let's say we've got a telephone. If you give me the choice between physical push buttons, like on a payphone, where you got these like square buttons with the indents and stuff, or a
Yeah.
touch screen, I'm going to choose the payphone every single time because I want to push the physical button and feel it like resist my finger for a second, and like hear the click as I push it in, or like,
Yeah, yeah.
why do people buy mechanical keyboards still? It's
Oh
because they
yes.
they make that really satisfying click, tickety tack click noise like a typewriter. Why do people love typewriters? Same thing. You have that visceral like, ooh, it makes these fun noises and it like resists my fingers and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
think as the world transitions to touchscreens more and more, and that becomes such a standard, people crave that kind of interaction where it's like,
Yeah.
I want to be able to feel something,
The
instead of just
literal.
like, and phones try to imitate this through like the vibrate function, right? Where
Yeah.
like, you're moving your finger around and like each time you hit a button, your phone kind of buzzes a little bit. it's
Yeah.
it's just not the same. It's a poor excuse for the same user experience, and like, there are, again, definite advantages to a touch screen, like infinite interfaces. You can put whatever you want on this one interface. It's extraordinary and it's revolutionary, but there's still something that ye old fashioned number pad can do, where you like have the actual physical buttons, something that can do that the phone still can't do, or like the touch
Yeah.
screen still can't do, right?
Like true stories. I've literally turned on the vibration, the haptic feedback on my keyboard just because it felt weird that I was touching these letters and nothing was I
Yeah.
was like, did I touch it right?
And like, honestly, as a user experience, when everything you touch is like that, it's such an uninspiring, unhappy feeling, you know? Like
Yeah.
something is missing. Like only one of my senses is being engaged with, and that's my sight and like maybe sound. But I'm not feeling the touch anymore, you know? Like
Yeah.
everything, all these interfaces that I'm touching, they feel the same because they physically are the same thing. It's just my tablet screen, you know?
Yeah.
And that is such a deafening uh loss, you know? Like
Yeah.
you you need that physical touch, that physical
We do.
feedback, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to
Well.
I think it's hard to convince people of that too when you're actually designing a product because it usually requires that they invest more money into like making a physical interface. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
why do we have to manufacture all these little keypad things when we can just
Yeah.
have one screen that does it all? And
That's
you know,
right.
again, there's a lot of advantages to the touch screen, but
Yeah.
it makes me angry. You know, I want my push
On
buttons,
that,
right?
we need to finish the episode because I'm gonna start cooking. I mean, you and me can keep talking,
Okay.
but everybody stay humble and take care.
Yeah, bye bye.